flying to Japan and I'm thinking of doing daily vlogs while I'm there every single day. But I have a big dilemma. How am I supposed to keep up with all of my recordings, my daily recordings, and also edit the vlog every single day? If you've ever shot on Sony or have done vlogs on Sony, you've probably encountered this question, this dilemma. If you haven't, then keep watching anyway, because I might have a few things that you might find interesting. Today we're talking about video record settings and which settings might be best for vlogging. Now the specific settings we're looking at are 4K 24p at 100 megabits per second, 4K 24p at 60 megabits per second, and recording at 1080 at 24p at 50 megabits per second. That's a lot of numbers. Now Sony cameras have a lot more recording options, but these are the few that I think are most common for shooting vlogs. But why is it important to choose from these recording options anyway? Can't we just record at the best setting, maybe 4K at 100 megabits per second, and just be done with it? Well, I guess yeah, but there are a few other considerations that we have to consider, such as file size, or how many megabytes or gigabytes even your video files will be consuming. Now file sizes and bit rates also have an effect on what I call editing comfort, or how heavy or smooth it is to edit your files on a video editor. Finally, your record settings also have an effect on your recording quality, or how crisp your images look when you're viewing them. Also, how much you can crop into your images before they lose quality. Now, these are the three main points I want to focus on in this test. How I did my testing is I recorded a few vlogs throughout the past few days with those three different record settings. Now, I actually uploaded a vlog recently with the lowest settings at 1080p. I think it turned out fine. You can check it out. I'll link that in the description below. But for now, let's talk about file sizes. Now, file sizes isn't really a big consideration if you're just recording by the day, but say for example you're out traveling where you have limited access to your hard drives or your main computer. You only have so much storage that you can bring with you out traveling. What I usually have with me is a laptop with around 500 gigabytes of free space, a 2 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive, and a bunch of SD cards. So more or less, my total amount of storage for traveling is around 3 terabytes. I actually feel like this isn't too much, but I make do with what I have. So essentially, just have a limited storage capacity, and this will definitely limit the amount of footage you can capture by the day. 4K footage will be the biggest file size, and the 50 megabits per second for the 1080 format will result in the smallest files. Now, it's just a matter of simple math to calculate the amount of storage you will need. For example, if you're recording at 100 megabits per second, this will result in about 750 megabytes per minute of footage, while if you're recording at 1080p, this will be around half, or around 375 megabytes per minute of footage. Now, if you're recording at 60 megabits per second, on the 4K format, that's around 450 megabytes per minute of footage. So we can see that your storage devices, whether it's a hard drive or a laptop, will definitely get filled up very fast when you're out traveling. So it's important to consider your record settings. But that's just file size though. Also important is the record quality. Now, I think I'd rather stick with 4K just because I'd rather have that buffer or that allowance to be able to crop in. So my two options are 4K at 100 megabits per second and 4K at 60 megabits per second. Let's look at a few clips to see the difference in quality between these two formats. Now, these are a few excerpts from the vlogs I took. How is the image quality? Can you really tell the difference? Obviously, you can tell the difference between 1080p and 4K, especially if you're watching on a bigger screen or if you're cropping on the edit. But is 4K at 100 megabits really a noticeable difference versus 4K at 60 megabits? Now, here are two clips. Let's see if there's a noticeable difference. Let's also try cropping in. Do you see a difference? I can't really see a difference on my end. I don't really have a 4K screen anyway, so you tell me. But for me, 4K at 60 megabits isn't really all that bad, especially if I'm just doing vlogs. These aren't cinematic masterpieces, so I think I can make do with the less bitrate. But again, since we're just doing vlogs, I want the edit process to be as smooth as possible, so I don't want my editing software to be laggy or stuttery or freeze on me. Definitely the smaller files will be less taxing on your computer. The bigger file size will feel heavier on your edit. But from experience of editing these vlogs over the past few days, I barely notice a difference between the 4K at 60 megabits versus the 1080 at 50 megabits. I think it's because the file sizes are fairly similar enough. I do encounter a bit of slowdown or stutter when I'm editing on the 4K at 100 megabits per second. So I think I'll just be sticking with 4K at 60 megabits per second. But you may ask why I don't just use proxies instead of the bigger file sizes for my files. Again, I want to do daily vlogs, and if you're doing daily vlogs, you might not really have enough time to generate those proxies, especially if you took a lot of footage. So I want my edits to be just plug and play, pull my files from the camera, from my SD cards into the computer, into the machine, edit fast, do some cuts, upload to YouTube. And that's about everything I want to do. No more proxying. I won't even do some color grading, maybe a little bit. But for the most part, it's gonna be raw vlogging to show you experiences. And I think that's really what vlogging is all about, to show experiences without all of the technical stuff considered. As a side note, if you're editing on a newer Apple computer, a newer Apple laptop with an M1 processor or newer, I don't think you have to consider so much the editing comfort. This because I think the Apple M1 and M2 computers are very much capable of just editing things on the fly without much effort even. So here are a few more vlog clips at 4K at 60 megabits per second. Let me know what you think. Now for me, I don't think the regular viewer will even care about the quality. Rather, the regular viewer will just be looking at if it's 4K or if it's not 4K. But more importantly, will just be more interested in the story I'm trying to tell. So to summarize, I think a good balance between file size, edit comfort, and even image quality will be the 4K at 60 megabits per second. While I'll be recording mostly at 60 megabits per second, I think I'll still be recording at 1080p at 50 megabits per second for days that I know I'll be shooting a lot, so that I don't fill up my SD card so fast. But what I'm sure of is I won't be recording at 4K at 100 megabits per second just because I don't need to. These are vlogs, these aren't cinematic masterpieces. I can make do with a quality at 60 megabits per second. If you found this video useful or entertaining, why would you find it entertaining? Hit subscribe. I'll see you in our next video.